You feel it before you hear it, the stone beneath your boots shivering in a slow, patient rhythm. Below you in the dark, tens of thousands of men are digging, hammering, praying. You are standing on the walls of Constantinople, and this is the last night they will ever hold. It is Monday, the 28th of May, 1453. Behind you sleeps a city 11 centuries old, the last living piece of the Roman Empire. In front of you, an army waits that has already been promised the right to take it apart. You have been here 53 days. You know the smell of burnt pitch, the exact place where the mortar weeps white dust. Before the sun clears the Asian hills tomorrow, you will learn how a 1,000-year empire ends. The siege opened on the 6th of April. The Sultan is Mehmed II, 21 years old, mocked by his own court until he arrived here. He has come to finish what 6 generations of his family could not. He brought something no besieger ever had. A bronze bombard nearly 27 feet long, cast by a Hungarian engineer the Byzantines could not afford to keep. It hurls stone balls that weigh half a ton, and it needs 3 hours to reload. Each shot takes a bite out of walls that have turned back every army for 1,000 years. A moat, an outer wall, and behind it, the great inner wall with its 96 towers. Every night you and the citizens rebuild what the day tore down. You are not many. A secretary of the emperor counted the fighting men and was told to keep the number secret. Fewer than 5,000 Greeks, and perhaps 2,000 foreigners. Against you, the chroniclers guess 80,000. The man who holds the breach is Genoese, Giovanni Giustiniani Longo, who sailed in with 700 professional soldiers and no obligation to be here at all. The emperor gave him command of the land walls, and the Greeks obey him without complaint. And the emperor is Constantine, 11th of that name, who has been offered his life, a province and safe passage if he simply walks away. He answered that to surrender the city is not his right, nor any man's who lives in it. 5 weeks ago the sea seemed safe, a great iron chain floats across the Golden Horn. Then in one night, Mehmed dragged 70 ships overland on greased timber and put a fleet inside your harbor. Since then, no wall has been safe. The city has stopped trusting the sky. A week ago, the full moon went dark during an eclipse. Then, during a procession, the holiest icon in Constantinople slipped from its bearers into the mud, and a storm scattered the crowd. 2 nights ago, a fog came down out of season, and when it lifted, watchers swore a light crawled around the dome of Hagia Sophia and rose away into the dark. The Greeks said the Holy Spirit had left the city. The Ottomans said their victory was coming. Today the Sultan rested his army and rode the line telling them what the old law allows: 3 days of the city once it is taken. You hear their answer from a mile away, a roar, then trumpets, then every campfire lit at once, until the plain burns brighter than the town. So the city does the only thing left. Icons and relics come out of every church, and Greeks and Italians who have argued about their faith for 400 years walk in the same procession, singing the same words, around the inside of the walls. That evening, the doors of Hagia Sophia open for a service. Both churches attend. Soldiers come straight from the walls in their armor, take communion as if it were their last, and go straight back. It is the final Christian liturgy that building will ever hold. Constantine speaks to his commanders before they scatter. He tells the Italians they are defending their own honor and the Greeks that they are the heirs of heroes, and then he asks every man in the room to forgive him anything he has done. Grown soldiers weep. Then you go out through the inner gates, and behind you they are locked. There is no falling back tonight. Whatever happens on the outer wall happens with the city sealed at your spine. Your post is the Mesoteichion, where the ground dips into a river valley and the walls sit lower than anywhere else. Here the cannon has done its worst, and what stands is a stockade of barrels, earth, vine branches, and broken masonry. Around midnight, the noise across the ditch stops, the singing stops, then the fires go out, one field at a time, until the plain is nothing but black. Silence out there is the worst sound you have ever heard. You wait. Someone near you says a prayer under his breath, over and over. You count the towers you can still see against the stars, and you find you cannot stop your hands from shaking, and you decide that is fine. At 1:30 in the morning, it breaks open. Kettle drums, cymbals and pipes hit at once along the whole 4 miles, cannon fire behind them, and out of the dark, the first wave comes running at your barrels with ladders. These first men are the irregulars, volunteers, adventurers, the desperate, sent to spend your arrows and your arms. They are badly armed and there are thousands of them, and behind them stands a line of military police who will not let them turn back. You fight them for 2 hours in a space too narrow to swing properly. Stones, bolts, hooks, boiling pitch, hands appear over the barrels and are cut away. When they finally pull back, you are still standing and you cannot lift your shield arm. There is no rest. The trumpets change key, and the second wave is nothing like the first. Anatolian regulars in mail, moving in step, coming to one narrow place, because that is where the wall is broken, and they know it. The great cannon fires into the same spot, and the stockade comes apart. 300 of them are inside before you can close it. The emperor himself is in that gap, and it takes everything you have to push them back out. The sky in the east has gone from black to grey. You have been fighting for 4 hours without relief, because there is no relief. There was never anyone to send. Someone counts the dead along the stockade and stops counting. Then you see the third wave forming and your stomach turns over. Tall white caps, long robes, perfect silence, perfect order. The Janissaries have been standing there all night, fresh, and the Sultan rides down to the edge of the ditch to watch them go in. They come on in disciplined lines, and for an hour nothing moves. 2 walls of men on either side of a heap of barrels, killing each other at arm's length, with the Sultan's voice carrying across the ditch, telling his men the city is already theirs. Ottoman writers remember a giant of a man from Unlived who got up onto the rampart with a shield over his head and planted a banner there. He was killed almost at once. 30 more came up behind him, and this time the banner stayed. And then 2 things happen within minutes of each other, and either one alone might have been survivable. Together, they end the Roman Empire. North of you, up by the imperial palace, there is a small sally port called the Kirka. A Greek chronicler says the last men through it forgot to bar it. 50 Ottoman soldiers find it open and get up onto the tower above. And at the stockade, Giustiniani is hit, a shot through the breastplate or the arm, the sources argue. He asks the emperor for the key to the inner gate and is carried through it to a ship, and his Genoese see him go. That is the moment. 700 professional soldiers watching their captain leave the field, and one open gate to leave by. The line at the breach thins, then buckles, and the Janissaries feel it give. Then someone up the line shouts that the flags are flying on the palace towers. The cry runs down the wall faster than any man can. The city is taken, and it is not even true yet when it starts. You see the emperor try to hold it. He rides into the panic shouting for them to stand, and men who worshipped him 3 hours ago run past his horse. There is a point where courage stops being enough, and this is it. So he does the last thing available to him. He strips off the imperial insignia so that no one can take him alive as a trophy, draws his sword, and rides into the crush at the gate with 3 companions. Nobody ever sees him again. Behind him, the retreat becomes a slaughter at the gates. Too many men trying to get through openings built for 2 abreast. The chroniclers write that some suffocated standing up, crushed by their own side. Inside the walls, thousands run to Hagia Sophia. There is an old prophecy that when the enemy reaches the great column, an angel will come down with a sword and turn them back. They fill the church and bar the doors and wait for it. The doors come down with axes. What follows is what Mehmed promised his army and what the age permitted. 3 days, by custom, though he stops it after 1, because the prize he wants is a city, not a ruin. In the afternoon, the Sultan rides in through the gate of St. Romanus, across a city that is his now, and dismounts at Hagia Sophia. He takes a handful of earth and pours it over his turban, so that God will see him humble in the hour he won everything. Later writers say he stood in the empty imperial palace and quoted an old Persian verse. The spider weaves the curtains in the palace of the Caesars. The owl calls the watches in the towers. He is 21, and he calls himself Caesar of Rome. They search the dead for the emperor. Someone brings a head. Someone else identifies a corpse by purple boots stitched with eagles. No one is ever certain. The last Roman emperor simply stops appearing in the record. It was a Tuesday. Greeks would call Tuesday unlucky for the next 500 years. Scholars fleeing west carried their libraries into Italy. Scholars looking for another route to the east started sailing in the opposite direction and found a continent. But none of that reaches you on the wall. You only had a stretch of broken barrels, a dark plain, and a night that would not end. Whatever else the empire was, it was finally just this. A few thousand exhausted people standing in a gap, refusing to move.